Now, for more on this story, we're joined from Gaza by MSF Project Coordinator Caroline Willemen. Caroline, thank you for joining us. First of all, you're there on the ground. You're seeing it firsthand. How fragile is the current ceasefire really from your point of view?
I think the events of Sunday showed how extremely fragile it is. Already when the ceasefire was announced, it was very clear amongst my Palestinian colleagues that their reaction was not enormous joy. It was extremely cautious. It was people don't know what to expect. People are terrified. People continue to be scared. And day after day, slowly, their fate started to build that maybe this time we do actually have a ceasefire. And on Sunday, this beginning very small sense of safety broke down completely as airstrikes started again. We had a few dozen patients who came in only in our hospital. We had 2 dead people arriving, one unfortunately the brother of one of our colleagues, the other a 1-year-old child. So the human price that is being paid by these grave breaches of the ceasefire is very, very real and felt by people and families here.
So Marco Rubio has warned that Israel's annexation could move to derail this peace process. Does it kind of already feel that that's happening in Gaza where you are?
I think from my perspective on the ground, it's difficult from the purely humanitarian perspective to necessarily comment on what are all of the different political factors that are playing into the fragility of the ceasefire. But yeah, I mean, what we see on the ground is that it remains very fragile. We continue also to see patients who have been shot by Israeli forces because they come too close to the so-called yellow line, which now is starting to be marked, but which especially at the beginning, people simply did not know where this line was. So yes, there was less bombing, less strikes, but still people are getting wounded. Still people, we see patients as well coming in because they pick up unexploded ordnance as they return to their destroyed homes. They're getting wounded by that. So while of course the strikes have decreased tremendously and they're hitting less people, we still hear them. Today, all day, we were hearing strikes apparently happening beyond the so-called yellow line. It indeed feels very fragile, and in particular, the events of Friday have had an impact also in people's extremely fragile sense of safety in wiping that off the table in the matter of a few minutes of these strikes restarting.
Caroline, the UN's top court has said that Israel has to allow more aid in to Gaza. Is that really making any difference yet? Are you seeing any aid coming in at the moment, or where are we in terms of how much aid was coming in pre-ceasefire versus now?
It is trickling in, but it's absolutely insufficient for the level of needs that we see here. For us as a medical organization, the main issue that we continue to have with bringing in supplies are the so-called dual-use items that are defined by the Israeli authorities as dual use, as in they could be used, according to them, for either civilian or military purposes. What we are talking about for us as a humanitarian organization is items that we need for water purification, to be able to do the sanitation of items also within our hospital materials, external fixators, which are used for people with very complex broken bones, like vital materials to be able to do our work remains blocked. When it comes to food coming in, we are not one of the partners doing food distributions, etc. I do see more food in the markets than when I was here, for example, based in Gaza City back in July and August, when really the famine was at its peak, but it doesn't mean that this food is reaching everybody. And this is why more food and humanitarian assistance needs to continue to come in. We continue to diagnose children with both moderate and severe acute malnutrition on a near daily basis, which really shows that, yes, there is some food in the market, but it's not reaching everybody.
You're with MSF on a daily basis. You have limits, much like most people in Gaza do, limits on media access, limits on the aid, as you just mentioned now. What are the other obstacles that you're facing, that you and the team are facing every single day?
Well, I think this point of the continued insecurity, of course, it is more calm than it was 2 weeks ago, but this continued insecurity and the continued lack of clarity on what is going to happen continues continues to have a big toll, mainly on our Palestinian colleagues who have been doing tremendous, incredible work, working through 2 years of genocide and this very, very fragile ceasefire. It's helping us to do our work a little bit better. But again, it remains very, very fragile. What we are seeing as well in terms of daily life for people. Yes, there's less strikes, but daily life for people remains equally difficult. They still have to line up with their jerry cans to get some drinking water, insufficient, but this has not changed. The drinking water system cannot be rebuilt in such a short period of time. Hundreds of thousands of people remain in tents. We need to expect that they will most definitely spend the winter in these tents. These days, still daytime is warm, nights are starting to get cold. We need more shelter to come in for people, proper for them to be able to protect themselves from the elements. So in many ways, daily life for people in Gaza has improved in the sense that there's no more daily strikes or there's no more strikes at the same intense level that we saw until 2 weeks ago, but everything else in terms of access to basic services remains for most people just as difficult as it was 2 weeks ago.
Staffing wise, with MSF at the moment, since the ceasefire was announced, fragile although it is, are you seeing an influx in people who are willing to put their hand up and volunteer and try and get on the ground to come in to help you guys in the critical work that you're doing for the people of Gaza?
I think the key point is that the vast majority of our staff are Palestinian staff. We have 1,000 Palestinian staff across the Gaza Strip. And so while you may see people like me speaking with media, we are a tiny portion of the people coming here trying to make our activities run. So yes, there's a number of us available to do this work. But what for me is the key thing is that we can create the circumstances for our Palestinian colleagues to continue to do their job, despite the fact that they are exhausted, that many of them have struggled themselves to get access to food, despite the fact that they have access to a salary, which is not the case for many other Palestinians, that they are living enormous grief because everybody has lost family, has lost friends. We have lost 15 of our colleagues who have been killed in the last 2 years. And that is for me where the focus should be. How can we help and try to assist our Palestinian colleagues to continue doing the incredible work that they have been doing over these 2 impossible years?
Caroline Willemen from MSF, thank you so much for joining us.